All right, we're going to cover Acts chapter 16, verses 6 and on. But before we do that, I wanted to talk about verses 1 to 5, something that I didn't get on record, something I don't think we talked about. We did talk about circumcision before, but there is something that we were actually discussing on Thursday night I wanted to get on record. So remember the topic we were all talking about um last Shabbat, the topic on the Jewish people and why they don't believe in the Messiah that Anthony brought. And one of the reasons they say is because the Messiah doesn't come from the lineage of David. And they said the reason is because the the uh the lineage is followed only by the men. So if there's a woman but a Gentile husband, that child is not an Israelite, that child is not a Jew. Well, not only did we disagree with that, but I found a passage in the New Testament that actually shows how that's not legitimate. Acts chapter 16, verses 1 to 5. It says, And he came to Derbe and Lystra, and behold, a certain disciple was there named Timothy, the son of a Jewess, a female Judean, who believed, but his father was a Greek. The brothers who were at Lystra and Iconium gave a good testimony about him. Paul wanted to have him go out with him, and he took and circumcised him because of the Jews who were in those parts, for they all knew that his father was a Greek. As they went on their way through the cities, they delivered the decrees to them to keep, which had been ordained by the apostles and elders who were at Jerusalem. So the assemblies were strengthened in the faith and increased in number. All right, this is where I want to go with this. This is the angle I want to go with this. There were two people that I know of in the New Testament by name with the topic of circumcision, whether they did or didn't. One of them is Timothy. The other one is Titus. Titus was not circumcised. And let's see if we can find this passage. Titus, I should have saved all this in our conversation, but I'll do it off the fly. Actually, this is what I'll do. I will. All right, so I want to go to Galatians chapter 2. Starting at verse 1, it says, Then after a period of 14 years, I went up again to Jerusalem with Barnabas, taking Titus also with me. I went up by revelation, and I laid before them the good news which I preach among the Gentiles, but privately before those who were respected, for fear that I might be running or had run in vain. But not even Titus, who was with me, being a Greek, was compelled to be circumcised. Titus is identified as being a Greek. Timothy is not identified as being a Greek. The language is very interesting because it just simply says, identifies Timothy, the son of a female Jew who believed, but his father was Greek. It never says he was Greek. But here's where I want to go with why I would say Timothy was considered a Jew. Here's where I'm gonna go with it. The passage I want to go to is, did I read more of this? Let me see. This was because a false brother secretly brought in, so he didn't circumcise Titus, who was a Greek. This was because of the false brother secretly brought in, who stole in to spy out our liberty, which we have in Messiah Yahusha, that they might bring us into bondage, to whom we gave no place in the way of subjection, not for an hour, that the truth of the good news might continue with you. In context, I'm not going to go through all of this. I went through this in our Acts chapter 15 study and in the book of Galatians playlist on our YouTube channel. But the context here is the same context as Acts chapter 15, where you have some Jews who claim to believe in the Messiah now, were forcing Gentiles to get circumcised, and unless they got circumcised, they were not considered saved. And the apostles rose up to speak against that in the same book, chapter of Acts 15. They ended up concluding, you know what? No, we're not making it a prerequisite that they have to get circumcised and keep all of the law in order to be saved. We just want them to first abstain from idolatry, sexual immorality, food strangled, and blood, right? Things like that. And then they will learn on the Sabbath. Acts chapter 15, like 21 or something like that, says they will learn from Moses, because Moses is preached on the Sabbath. So this was, somewhat of a protest against those false brothers. They call them the circumcision party, who basically say you're not saved unless you're circumcised. Paul, in protest, was not circumcising Timothy and showing that Timothy was accepted as a brother, as a born-again believer, even though he wasn't circumcised. It was supposed to be a smack in the face to those circumcision party guys. Now I want to go to drive this point home of why it was that Paul circumcised Timothy and not Titus. I believe it's because Timothy was a Jew and Titus was a Gentile. And I'm gonna give you my basically my summary, but then I want to give you scriptures of why I say that. It's in the book of Acts. Chapter 21, around 25 or so. I think it's in this paragraph right here. Okay, so verse 17 of Acts chapter 21. It says, when he had come to Jerusalem, and I believe it's talking about Paul, the brothers received us gladly. The day following, Paul went in with us. Paul went in with us to James, and all the elders were present. When he had greeted them, he reported one by one the things which God had worked among the Gentiles through his ministry. So Paul is giving testimony. Look at the miracles that happened, healings that happened. This is how many people were coming to the faith amongst the Gentiles. Verse 20, they, when they heard it, glorified God. They said to him, you see, brother, how many thousands there are among the Jews of those who believed, and they are zealous for the law. They have been informed. Those Jews, have been informed. Somebody is spreading some information about you, Paul, that you teach all Jews who are among the Gentiles to forsake Moses, telling them not to circumcise their children and not to walk after the customs. So right away, I just want to summarize real quick. There is gossip and slander going on, which gossip and slander is usually never good because it's never good because gossip and slander has to do with lying about a person's reputation, behavior, or being a false witness about somebody. So we have lying going on. We have gossip going on. We have slander going on. Verse 22, what then? The assembly must certainly meet. Like, we got to meet. For they will hear that you have come. Therefore, do what we tell you. We have 4 men. All right, so these are the elders of the believing assembly of Messiah. These are the elders. These are the leaders at that time giving Paul advice. They said, therefore, do what we tell you. We have 4 men who have taken a vow. Tell them to purify yourself. Tell them and purify yourself with them. Which this, I'm not going to go into it, but this right here, taking a vow and doing a purification process is in the Old Testament. It's actually part of the law of Moses when you do certain vows or the prophets, probably a Nazirite vow of some sort. And it says, Paul, so take these guys, participate with their vow and pay their expenses for them. that they may shave their heads. Then what's the purpose? Then all will know that there is no truth in the things that they have been informed about you, but that you yourself also walk keeping the law. I hope you guys are seeing this. Paul, when dealing with the Jews, it was imperative that in no way, shape, or form did Paul show any lackadaisical approach to keeping the law of Moses. Okay? It was imperative. I believe Acts chapter 16 has everything to do with that, especially when compared to Galatians chapter 2, where a Gentile was not circumcised. We have Timothy, I believe, to be a Jew. And the reason why I believe he's a Jew is because of this, because of stuff like this. It was imperative for him as a witness to other Jews to show them that he was not against the law of Moses. Therefore, he would not be against circumcision, especially when it came to a Jew, a person who should be circumcised, because by ethnicity and DNA, they come from the lineage of Israel. And it is a covenant, commandment. And then verse 25, but concerning the Gentiles who believe, we have written our decision that they should observe no such thing, except that they should keep themselves from food offered to idols, from blood, strangled things, and from sexual immorality, which is a repetition of the decision that the apostles came to in the meeting that they had in Acts chapter 15. It's not saying that they shouldn't keep, it's not saying that they should lie now and they could dishonor their mother and their father and murder. Okay, no, it's giving a few points, starting points for the Gentiles, but it wasn't something to do right away. But for a Jew, it was important to show Paul was a Jew, even though he was born in Rome. His ethnicity is he's a Jew. It's important for him to show his fellow Jews, the Judeans, that he's not against the law. Therefore, my conclusion, I think this is a great witness. This story right here is a great witness to why Paul actually circumcised Timothy, being that his mom was a Judean, but his dad was not. As a witness, and it says it right here, Paul wanted to have him go out with him, and he took and circumcised him because of you got the same language here, because of the Jews. Paul circumcised him. You don't see this language in the book of Acts regarding Gentiles, because it says, but as for the Gentiles, there wasn't that urgency to be circumcised. It wasn't that important. Gentiles are ignorant of the Torah. They're ignorant of the scriptures. They're way behind. Okay? They're way behind. It's like a kid who hasn't graduated the 5th grade lands in a 10th grade classroom. They're way behind. So you got to treat those kids a little differently. Okay? You got to catch them up. You got to teach them a little slower. All right? Anybody here ever been in ever went to like an honors class where all the smart people are? I don't know if you ever ended, I don't know how. No, yeah, me neither. But I can imagine if I ended up in a class like that. You know, I know that some honor students ended up in normal classes, in my classes, and they would always be like, this stuff is too easy. You know, if we were in their classes, we would be struggling. So that's what we're dealing with in the New Testament with Paul and everything, is the Jews should be more educated, more knowledgeable of the scriptures, and know about the covenant of circumcision and the law of Moses. So the accountability and the expectation is higher than the expectation for a Gentile. And so that is my argument for why it is a lie that the Messiah couldn't be, Yahusha couldn't be the authentic Messiah, because he didn't have the seed of Joseph. That's one of my arguments, is that's just not true. Here's one example where Timothy, his father, is a Greek, yet he's being treated like a Jew. My other argument, real quick, and then I'll let Anthony go. I saw his hand was up. Then my second argument is Yahuwah could easily put the seed of Joseph inside of Mary without Joseph lying with her. Those are my two arguments for it, but I just wanted to share that before we had moved forward. Anthony, you want to say something?
So because his dad was a Greek, right? That's what it says.
Yes.
He wouldn't know, right? So he's actually doing him a great service by circumcising, because his dad doesn't know that that's part of his responsibility, because the father would know from father to sons how to do this because they've been taught that, right?
As far as I know, the Greeks didn't practice circumcision.
Exactly. So he's like, hey, your father didn't do this, and it's appropriate for us to do this because you are, a Jew.
Yep.
And so he's doing him a great service, honestly.
Absolutely. I agree. And this is not to say that circumcision is only for the Jews and not for the Gentiles. It's just saying that the expectation is higher for a Jew because they are the original children of the covenant of promise. Paul's words, not mine. Okay? Paul said that in the book of Romans. What advantage does the Jew have? I'll read that real quick before I end in case people are like, oh, what did he just say? There's no higher expectation for Jews. Yes, there is, guys. Don't be jealous. Don't be upset. It is what it is. I think it's actually Romans 11. Let me see. No, it's not that one. Let me try prophet. Oh, here it goes. Romans chapter 3. Let's read the Romans chapter 3, verse 1. Paul's words, not mine. Then what advantage does the Jew have? Or what is the profit of circumcision? Much in every way. Much in every way. There is much profit to circumcision, and there is a greater advantage to being a Jew. Because first of all, they, the Jews, were entrusted, or the Israelites were entrusted with the revelations of God. They're the ones that were given the 10 Commandments. They were the ones that were given the law. And don't forget, there was a mix of Gentiles within that group that got the 10 Commandments and the law. There were some guys from Egypt that went with Israel out into the wilderness. However, the audience was first and primarily God's original children, the Israelites. Those are his covenant children. And the laws were given primarily to them first, not to say that it doesn't apply to Gentiles, because any Gentile that joined themselves to Israel were welcome to actually follow these laws as well, especially circumcision. So anyway, that's the icing on the cake. I just wanted to share that because I don't think I had that on record.